Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you all are doing great. Those of you all who are in Seattle, I'm sure you've gotten a hell lot of sun today and you won't complain about not having sun for a long time. Okay, today we are gonna harvest garbanzo greens. No, not the leaves, the green garbanzo beans from the pods. Let's get started. If you've not seen a garbanzo plant before, that's what it looks like. And we have a lot of garbanzo pods ready to be harvested. So let's pick it and see how they look in the inside.
Chickpeas, garbanzo beans, Egyptian beans, Bengal gram, or chana, however you know them, these are delicious legumes which are a rich source of protein, fiber, healthy fat, carbs, and also packed with loads of essential vitamins and minerals. The best part, however, is these beans are so versatile and extremely delicious. I was reading a blog a few years ago, and the author noted if there were ever Olympics held for best ingredients, chickpeas would totally take home gold in every category. No wonder these beans are extremely popular and adopted well in cuisines around the world, especially so in African and Asian cuisines. Won't it be great if you could grow these delicious and versatile legumes in your own backyard? Without further ado, let's learn when and how to plant your chickpeas. Chickpeas like a lot of sun and medium to dry environment to thrive. They also grow in partial sun, although you might not like the low yield it would produce. So pick the part of your yard which gets a lot of direct sun and prepare your soil to be well drained and ensure it has rich organic matter. Another thing to keep in mind before you plant is chickpeas do grow deep roots. So I highly encourage to plant the seeds directly in the part of the garden where you intend to grow them and harvest and not plan for any transplantation later. Chickpeas require about 100 to 120 days of growing season before you can harvest the pods. They grow best when the day temperature range between 65 and 85 Fahrenheit or 18 to 29 degrees Celsius. So check the temperature range in your location and time the sowing. If you are in Seattle like me, you want to have a head start and plant your seeds in mid to maybe late May when the temperatures are on the rise. How do I know this is the best time or temperature range to plant chickpeas? You may ask. Well, I've done it all over the place and learned the difference. I've planted chickpeas in different batches at different times of the year. The first ever batch of chickpeas I've planted was though in mid-March 2020. While the whole world went into the lockdown, for my family it was becoming very difficult to source fresh green leafy veggies. Green leafy veggies are a very important part of Indian cuisine as they are an essential ingredient for dal or lentil soup, which in turn is a staple. No one sent me a memo, obviously, about the looming lockdown ahead of time. So clearly, I had no seed. So what do I grow? That's when I turned to my pantry and found abundance of two seeds. Fenugreek or methi was the first. Chickpeas or chana was the second. Methi, on one hand, was easy as I already used those greens and know how to deal with it. Chickpeas was a stranger to me. I didn't know what to do with it, how to grow it, or how to use it. Although I've decided to sow them anyway and told myself I'll figure it out if it starts growing, how to use those greens when they come out. So, this is how it all started. I've included a link for the Methi journey here. For the chickpeas, however, the first lesson I've learned is you do not have to sprout chickpeas. You do not have to sprout them to plant them. On the contrary, dry seeds produce better results, so keep that in mind when you're planting your batch. Plant them in rows and space them right, and they shall grow well. First batch of chickpea seeds started sprouting and grew enough greens in about 5 to 6 weeks. And as I said, the intent was to use them for the greens. So I harvested the greens and didn't think any further back in the day. What did I do with those greens? I shall post a few videos on that later. So the journey continued after the harvest. I kept planting more batches and was waiting for the greens to come back until Pavan, what's with your intro? Those are some cute little bunnies, right? Ask any vegetable gardener, and they would use any word but cute to describe these actually cute creatures. These bunnies have either started digging up the sowed chickpea seeds before they could even sprout and ate them away. If a few of those seeds somehow escaped the attack and managed to sprout and grow the greens, the bunnies would come back to pick the greens that ended up growing. I tried a few times. The bunnies were relentless. They kept digging up. So it was really becoming hard to manage it. And it was really hard also to look at those plants after being picked. I've decided to build a tower garden and sow the chickpea seeds in those pockets to keep them off of bunnies. That finally did the trick, and I could save the chickpeas from the bunnies. And those plants, boy, they have grown like crazy, which we'll see next. While on one hand, I finally figured out how to save these plants from the bunnies, part of me was worried as this batch was planted in mid September, just a week or so away from the fall kickoff. So I wasn't entirely sure if these plants would even survive in colder weather. Those plants have not just survived, they've gone on to produce a ton of chickpea greens in about 5-ish weeks. This was my largest harvest of chickpea greens to date, which filled up 2-gallon Ziploc bags, which I froze to use for months to come. I was happy. I got a large harvest of greens in mid, maybe late October. So, what else I could ask for? The temperatures have started to dwindle down and it's like winding up the growing season. So, I'm like, I was content with the harvest I've gotten. So, I've not bothered to pull off the roots of the harvested chickpea greens and I let them stay in the tower garden. So time has passed and nature has gifted me absolutely interesting experience. These stems of the chickpeas, they've survived the winter and the harsh snowfall in Feb that happened in Seattle, and the stems have started sprouting again in March. And by the time it was May, they've not just produced a lot of greens, they've also started flowering. This was the first time when it occurred to me that, hey, wait a second, I could maybe also start to see actual chickpeas grow in my own backyard. I don't need to just settle for the greens. While chickpea greens were a stranger to me, chickpeas, on the other hand, were no stranger. Not just to me, I believe almost anyone and everyone knows and uses them. Green chickpeas were something that I've been craving for more than 4 years. More than 4 years ago, I found a frozen chickpea bag at Costco and bought it without any idea of what to do with it. Once I got back home, I found recipes at the back of the bag which basically said I could either use them to make green hummus or to use in smoothies. Well, turns out the bag started occupying a portion of my freezer for a few months to come. Eventually, one day, I had enough time and the right mood to come up with a dish which involved these green chickpeas. I shall post a video on the recipe of that dish so you all can enjoy it too. That dish came out so delicious that I've since been searching frozen section of Costco for green chickpeas or even other stores. With no luck, I've been settling to use edamame beans as an alternate. So even the thought that I could grow fresh chickpeas in my own garden made me so happy because I could finally make the dish with these green chickpeas. Tip number one, I have planted a variety of flowers in my garden, different colors, sizes, I mean, whatnot. It gives me so much happiness just to look at their vivid colors. To top it off, I've picked some fragrant flowers like the lilies, and once they start to bloom, I'm totally in heaven. Turns out my veggies and fruit plants invited their besties over. So here they were to quench their thirst. Bees are a plant's best friend. Did I say that? Well, I'm not entirely sure if bees or someone else is a plant's best friend, but then I can surely say bees are one of the plant's besties for sure. So here those were drinking all the nectar they could, and in the process, as a side effect, they end up doing what? They have pollinated most every plant in my garden and helped my family grow food while they were serving their queen. And that's what turned all those flowers on my chickpea plant into a lot of chickpea pods, which we will harvest next. Earthworms could also be considered as the best friend of both the plant and the gardener. So, between an earthworm and a bee, I'm not entirely sure who is a plant's best friend. What do you all think? Do let me know in the comment section, which one do you consider a plant's best friend, a bee or an earthworm? When I was building my tower garden, I also wanted to make sure that it would become a self sustained ecosystem in itself eventually. So I've started a worm farm in parallel and added almost a pound of red worms, also known as red wigglers, which I've harvested from the worm farm. After adding these worms to the tower garden, I've covered them up with a few layers of soil, and that's all it takes. These worms would then find their way to deeper layers of the soil and help the roots of the plants grow well. I highly encourage you all to also introduce worms to your own planters, pots, raised beds, just about anywhere where you would grow your plants. Keep in mind though, it is ideal to pick a cloudy day to introduce worms to their new habitat. If you could not pick a cloudy day, after you cover the worms with soil, water them thoroughly so that way it'll help the worms to settle down in their new habitat and eventually help your plants to grow and thrive. Adding worms was half job well done. What next? I now need to ensure that these worms stay happy, and to do so, I need to feed them well. So I turn to my garden leftovers. What I mean by that is all the plant stems, their leaves, the pods, which I leave to dry out after I harvest the veggies. I added those to the tower garden and then added a few fistful of soil. No, the soil was not meant for the worms to eat. The soil helps introduce good combination of microorganisms to the environment, and that in turn helps the worms convert the garden leftovers into nutritional delicacies for the plants in the tower garden. The garden leftovers went in, the soil went in. Now it's time to add some water. So we introduce moisture, and once that is done, let's add in some kitchen scrapes. All the food scrapes that you have from your veggies, fruits, and eggshells, coffee grounds, they all could go in. This would be an easy way for you to reduce your carbon footprint and reduce your household's addition to the landfills. Job is done now. Earthworms went in, they have food to keep them happy. We also have the right environmental factors to convert the earthworm castings into healthy compost, which keeps the plants happy. More importantly, all the garden and kitchen waste that is produced is not ending up in landfill. If that's not a win win, I don't know what is. Let's get to harvesting our chickpeas now.
This plant has produced lot of garbanzo pods. I can't wait to harvest them. It was planted last season. It has outgrown the winter in Seattle and produced a lot of pods. Okay, y'all, I'm not even a half done. Matter of fact, I'm not even a quarter done, but that's all the garbanzo pods that we've picked so far. It's getting really dark, so let me complete the harvest. I'll go back in and share with you all what I've been able to harvest today. Stay tuned. Oh my god. I've planted these garbanzo beans to produce some greens, and that's what it has done. Can you believe it? The plants have produced so many garbanzo pods, and I'm super excited. If you found the video useful and like it, please hit the thumbs up button and do not forget to share and subscribe to the channel. Oh, by the way, before you all leave, I had a question for you. What do you all think I should do with with those garbanzo plants? Should I prune them down and see if they come back next season, or should I let Mother Nature do its thing? Do let me know in the comment section. I'd look forward to seeing your thoughts.